Okay, so I have one moderately large video in the works and one major video in the works and a bunch of YouTube shorts which are piling up. Until I get to that, I wanted to make a shorter video, and this was something that came across my timeline, so I want to talk a little bit about this debate that I saw. Right-wing conservative trans extraordinaire Blaire White on something called the Brad Polumbo Show, debating a person called... Just gotta find out who this is. Loren Piretra. Loren Piretra.
We've got the left-wing YouTuber and influencer Loren Piretra.
All right, this is messing me up straight away. I don't know if it's Piretra or Piretra. I have to figure this out before I continue with the video. I don't want to be saying someone's name wrong. It's gonna take too long to figure it out. I've been looking through videos and I can't find it. I found an AI overview. It said Loren Piretra. So I guess I'll go with the AI pronunciation. I don't know where Brad got Piretra from.
Loren Piretra.
And also I stumbled across that she was one of the people funded by that dark money group that was giving $8,000 a month to influencers online to push the Democratic Party line. So that's pretty interesting. Apparently she was one of those recipients.
Benevolent.
Apparently she was one of the recipients of that money. So just keep that in context. Taylor Lorenz wrote an article about how these people were being paid by the Democrats. So there you go. Piretra. Loren Piretra was debating Blaire White about this high school kid who punched or attempted to punch this other kid. This guy was just running around with a sign saying, "I love ice," and he was kind of yelling out in the hallway, going on and everybody, "Hey, ice is so great, don't you love ice? Ice is awesome." The student came up and said, "I'm gonna punch you in the face, then you're gonna get in trouble for that." And he says, "Okay," and immediately punches him. The guy got punched, has 60,000 followers on Instagram. The video quickly went viral and has been viewed millions of times with mixed reactions. Some people praised the student who punched Spud, while others called for criminal charges and disciplinary action against the student. I can't find greater detail, but I'm just assuming that the punch did connect, because that seems to be the implication.
Because of the implication.
That the punch did hit the guy. He says, "I received hundreds of death threats, blah, 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 all for holding a sign that said, 'I love ice,'" which is a curious thing to say, because to me, it's basically admitting that you're not paying attention to the incredibly brutal and violent and hideous things that are occurring to many families and many immigrants across the United States at the hands of ICE, just thinking it's really funny or really amusing. In a sense, it's almost like saying, "Ha, you know, Epstein's Island, you know, that's a funny place, that's hilarious, that's really funny." And it's like, well, you know, that's not that funny. And then people getting really angry at you about that, and then just saying all of this for just saying Epstein's Island is a nice place. What's wrong with saying that? It seems like trolling to me. It seems like right-wing trolling, provoking. That's just the vibe I get from it. He's disturbing the peace, trying to sow dissent in the halls of his high school, which people love unless it's a protest against ICE, and then should have been hit with some tear gas or something. This student was suspended for 2 days, so the system did come back and do a little bit to him. Maybe not enough for what the really angry political people out there would like. I guess they would like this to destroy this kid's life, but he was suspended for 2 days, so there was a little bit of a slap on the wrist for what happened. So I'm going to discuss this debate. It got a little bit out of control, and that can happen in life sometimes, and that's why this video is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan, the world's largest insurance brokers. With Morgan & Morgan, you can be assured that you're not one disaster away from bankruptcy. They have been shown to pay... Just kidding. So Brad Polumbo hosted this debate. According to the Steamboat Institute, Brad Polumbo is an independent journalist and the co-founder of Based Politics. He advocates for free market capitalism, free speech, limited government, and individualism, and hosts the Brad versus Everyone podcast. That's a bit cringe. He graduated from the University of Massachusetts with a degree in economics and political science and lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Massachusetts. That's how you say that.
What do you mean by the word benevolent?
So this guy's a little bit of a conservative, sort of free marketer, maybe a bit libertarian. He seems like a pretty mixed bag. Ultimately, he really tends towards the right. He had a good showing recently in a debate that included Luke Beasley arguing with this super conservative guy about gay marriage, which did have a thumbnail that I thought was absolutely hilarious. Gay liberal versus Christian conservative. Ah, look at him. Where the guy was saying, gay people don't need marriage, they can just have civil unions, and Brad Polumbo was very much against that, and saying they should have the same rights, and it's a very important institution for gay people, but the reason he's saying all of that could have something to do with the fact that he is gay, and with conservatives, the mindset is often, like, if it impacts me personally, then I suddenly care about it, and it's important to me, so I guess it's personally important to Brad Polumbo that gay marriage is a thing, because he's gay, and maybe he's married, I don't know. If you look at his channel, it's a pretty mixed bag, and there's a lot of anti-woke slop in there. Woke journalist Don Lemon messed around. He's finding out. Which is funny because FAFO is a big thing.
Yet another FAFO moment. You F around, you find out every single time. Watch.
This former trans kid story genuinely horrifies me, trans in quotes. I guess if they're not trans anymore, I guess you can put that in quotes. Woke Karen snaps on CNN after guest says offensive fact. And the fact this person was saying was some crap about DEI being bad. So you can see Brad Polumbo is into this sort of fear-mongering woke slop kind of content. It was plainly evident by Brad's very hand-wringing, grandstanding, like moralizing introduction. Isn't this just the worst? This is going to lead to the end of society. Not to mention the title of the debate itself. Debate! Blaire White snaps as leftist star Loren Piretra laughs at political violence. She is a scum. That piece of crap.
Grown adults cheering on this kind of violence is objectively evil and is obviously going to lead to more young people acting out in uncivilized and disturbing manners like this to try to get attention from their favorite streamer or to go viral the way this guy did. And it all sends the exact opposite message that we should be trying to instill in our young people, that this is a country where we settle our differences through ballots, not bullets. Through arguments, not assault. Through democracy and elections, not attacking people. Either we're going to remain a civilized, free country and settle our differences democratically, or we're going to descend into violence, chaos, and eventually, maybe, civil war.
Till next time, take care of yourself and each other.
When I criticize Sean Head's video talking about the murder of Charlie Kirk, it's not necessarily that what Brad is saying is wrong. It's just so heavy-handed and so extreme that he's like, this punch, this is the tipping point for us going into the political violence which is going to lead to civil war and a complete destruction of America and the whole unraveling of civil society. Because there's people saying, yeah, you go, you do assault, you punch that guy. And I'm not an adult cheering on that kind of punching or assault or violence by this individual. I do not think it's a good thing that he punched him. I don't think he should have done that. I don't think it's right that he got suspended or even that there could have been a worse consequence for that guy because, yeah, you should not punch people. It's pretty easy for me to say I'm against that sort of violence. It's pretty obvious. Whether or not there's other people on the left who kind of cheer this sort of thing on. But for this to be the tipping point in a civil war, I don't know what society that conservatives live in. I don't know what news they're seeing every day. I could just repeat points I've already made in previous videos.
Yeah, it's rewind time.
Where the rhetoric has ramped up so incredibly during the Trump era. Like, it's very extreme. Everyone who disagrees with anyone else is like a subhuman freak monster.
These people are crazy. I'm telling you, they're crazy. Democrats are destroying our country.
And then you've got this guy walking around the hallways just being like, oh, ICE is great, I love ICE, ICE is fantastic. The rest of the people who are not conservatives, who are actually following this issue, are seeing people get killed, seeing them get brutalized, seeing families get ripped to shreds, seeing people's rights being violated, and seeing the extreme temperature of this situation. And who Brad wants to blame is, oh, it's the people cheering on the guy who was doing the punching, that's why this thing is occurring. No concern given to the fact that the rhetoric as a whole, much contributed by the right, has ramped up so incredibly alongside extreme state violence, dehumanization, and destruction of the civil dialogue and conversation. No, there's people online on the left who just say, oh, that's great that you're doing punching or something. That is the issue. It's not the fact that the system is on fire, that the society is like burning down around everybody. And it's like, oh boy, he's going to be encouraged to get a viral moment. But what do you think this guy walking around who's got 60,000 Instagram followers was doing, running around the hallways saying like, ICE is great? He wanted to provoke a reaction whereby somebody would take issue with him, but he was probably imagining more of like an argument, or like someone would yell at him and he'd yell at the other person and then put it online and say, look at how triggered these people are getting about ICE. Like, look at these woke people. These woke people are so offended about people's rights being violated, state-sanctioned violence. So that kind of makes it okay. And if you're against that, then you should be brutalized too. I'm sure he didn't expect to be punched, and I don't think that's good.
Virtue signaling.
He may have provoked that because he literally did provoke that, but that doesn't mean that I think he should be punched. It's really a sign of the climate being a lot more serious and a lot more intense than conservatives seem to care about. They'd rather complain about leftist rhetoric than say, maybe we should care about the state-sanctioned violence, maybe we should care about this right-wing rhetoric, which is constantly dehumanizing others. Maybe that should be a priority on our part to try to ramp these things down. But instead they want to use it it for like
virtue signaling,
moralizing, grandstanding, the crocodile tears, shaming. Yeah, that's like basically all they want to use it for. That was a bit of a rant, and that was evident by the fact that he was such an incredibly biased moderator. He was not a moderator, it was 2v1 in this so-called debate, which was mostly just them haranguing and talking over Loren the whole time.
I see you smiling. Give us your take on this.
So listen, I don't support political violence, and
But
I also, I at a certain scale, I do not support political violence, but I do understand why people were rejoicing because
a small scale.
What?
Just a small scale.
Just a small scale. Like I think.
So if someone smacks you for what you say today, are you going to be okay with that?
Let's let Loren just give her view, and then we can discuss.
It tickled my soul a little bit to see the guy get a little slapped around. At the end of the day, no one was really harmed.
You slap on the internet and I say it tickles my soul, just deal with that, I guess, right?
What was that part? I couldn't hear.
To be fair to this Loren individual, she never commented on that. Like, can I at least like get out a couple of sentences, or can I at least attempt to make a point without you guys just yelling at me? She never played the victim in that sense. I would have found that quite hard. It's hard to get your thoughts together if you're being interrupted every 2 seconds. It kind of triggered me a lot. Particularly the way that Blaire White approached this debate gave off vibes of some words that I don't use very often, but I have to say she came off like a humongous Karen.
Then why did you stay in Mexico?
It was massive Karen energy. She was just Karening up the place all over the show. There was a lot of hand-wringing. There was a lot of like crocodile tears.
And there's differences between having a difference in opinions and a belief that
and putting your hands on somebody. Yes, and putting your hands on somebody. Yeah.
Well,
you shouldn't do that.
ICE
and
is
it's
inherently
crazy because
violent.
it's such a low bar. It's such a low bar, right? But it's a bar that, you know, the people on the left, they just consistently cannot meet it. It's the same thing with Charlie Kirk. It's the same thing with any example like this.
Let's stay on this, because I do want to talk about Charlie, but let's stay. Well, hang on. I actually would like to stay on this.
So much kind of like moral aggrandizing.
You're an insane person. You don't get to hit somebody. And this kid can have charges pressed against him. You don't get
I
to
could
hit
say the
somebody
same thing
because you're on
about you
camera.
being insane for thinking that ICE is a justified organization and not a bunch of criminal masked militia running around because they're drunk on power and a bunch of fucking losers from their high school who've never felt alive before this. So they're
okay. And my opinion is that people who can't hear a dissenting political opinion and justify violence in reaction to it are fucking losers. Those are fucking losers to me.
Oh my God, you think violence is good? Oh wow, you're justifying this, that, and the other thing. And another phrase I don't like to use unironically, but it seemed like it.
Virtue signaling.
It was just like a Karen virtue signal fest on her behalf. And Brad Polumbo was there to just to back it up every step of the way with ridiculous facial expressions.
Just I support ICE is a violence-worthy statement?
It is.
I guess the problem is...
Feels a little bit more violent than a chubby kid slapping his classmate around. I think that's the real violence that we should be outraged at. And yes, we can agree that I'm not saying I support political violence. There are people whose views I fundamentally disagree with, and I don't want to see.
I can't believe you would justify a punch by a high school student. This is
objectively evil.
It's gonna lead to everyone's death.
Civil war.
It's gonna lead to terrible violence. And one more thing that was very triggering about this debate to me was that Blaire White would not let this Loren Piretra person finish a sentence or even get very far into like the second or third sentence of everything she was saying.
People were rejoicing because
a small scale.
What? I think
so if someone smacks you for what you say today,
get a little slapped around. At the end of the day, no one was really harmed.
You slap on the internet, and I say it took
between having a difference in opinions and a belief that
and putting your hands on somebody.
Political violence, yes, absolutely not right.
Right.
Even for people I fundamentally disagree with,
there's like a scale of
no violent offenses at all. We have over 200 instances of American citizens being
immigrants.
We had a 2-year-old punching or slapping or whatever went down at his high school. Is the pipeline into gun violence? No, I don't agree with that.
God.
And I think again, what I will say, you said it's so hard for you leftists to say that like political violence bad. Full stop.
It is. You can't
get
do
the
it
soundbite.
right
Get the
now.
soundbite. But
you can't do it right now.
It only comes up when it's these micro examples of
no, it doesn't.
One-off circumstances and free speech and viewpoints.
It's always a one-off.
Although radically different than my own.
She was being interrupted and talked over constantly because Blaire White was so outraged and was virtue signaling so hard about this high school person's punch on this other guy that you couldn't even hear what the Loren person was trying to say. And it's just like, how is this the way that you debate? You just berate and you just talk over someone constantly. I think that's a debating tactic. I think if somebody is trying to formulate their thoughts and trying to put something together, even if you really don't like it and you disagree and you're like, that person is justifying this terrible thing, I knew they were going to say, but, and then come up with some kind of excuse as to why it's okay for this guy to commit assault on this other student, even though that student was just doing his freedom of speeching in the hallway of the school. Before the person can even make the point or even add any caveats or even add any details or any sort of nuance of any kind, which you can still pick apart and say your nuance is BS, she just has to talk over her and interrupt her because she just cannot contain her outrage about this specific particular situation and how much it affects her and her emotions and her feelings and how seriously she takes this issue. What's this part which basically undermines Blaire White's entire argument, makes it completely moot, and shows you that it is just fakery. There's not actually any substance here about the true nature of political violence. There was this moment that I thought was completely repulsive and shocking on Blaire White's behalf, and it was not called out at all by Brad Polumbo, and it should have been. This was the worst part, and I'm going to explain why. And I'll even provide a resource for Blaire White to learn a little bit more about what ICE has actually been doing.
You stop it at just keep your hands to yourself, like the stuff we were taught in like kindergarten.
Sure. And where would we place ICE's violence on that scale of kidnapping people, beating the shit out of them, taking pregnant women into internment camps and restricting them from drinking water, getting food and basic care? Do we consider that violent too?
It would depend on isolated cases, and you'd have to examine each case and make a moral judgment on that. You certainly can't extrapolate that to thousands of ICE agents across the country in every action, and trying to put an umbrella on it is actually how violence happens. When you put an umbrella over the entire ICE organization is bad, and that's the perception that this kid clearly had who took the swing, then it doesn't matter that the person who was saying they could support ICE could probably point to countless incidents of an ICE agent saving a child from a pedophile, or saving someone from having a crime committed against them, or getting rid of drug dealers.
So she goes on a bit further, but to me this was insane.
These people are crazy.
The calculations about how we react to political violence and how we decide on the truth or non-truth of these situations, all of that changed. The entire calculus, like every way that you calculate it, is different now. All of a sudden it's a case-by-case basis. You can't make blanket statements. And how Blaire White just says the left this, the left that, all of a sudden it's like, oh, no, there's individual cases. Not all of these folks are bad. Did she offer any of those kinds of caveats for the left? No. The so-called quote-unquote left, or even just people who don't like ICE, disagree with ICE, think that what they're doing is terrible and inhumane and shocking and potentially illegal, but they just do it anyways. That's actually a really huge group of people. It's a very large group of people, and by the logic being used by Blaire, you're kind of fomenting violence against those folks by ascribing a blanket point of view to them. It's only a one-way street here. And then it's like, wait, hold up, you got to talk about all the good things that ICE agents are doing, like all the drug dealers they're stopping and all the situations they're really helping and making safe, and all the people they've saved. Well, you're not talking about all of the anti-ICE people who have not punched another guy on camera. What about all of them? Did you mention them and say, oh, well, but there's a lot of people who are anti-ICE who are completely peaceful and just don't like what they're doing. They really take issue with the way ICE has been deployed. They're not necessarily against stopping violent criminals. Crossing into America legally is a misdemeanor. It's not a felony, but they're treating all of these folks like felons. But let's talk about all the good ICE people. We could go tit for tat. We could spend an entire segment just talking about one kid who punched somebody else, or we could ignore anything bad that ICE has ever done. You know, those are our options. To finish this video, what is the incredible resource I was talking about that I think Blaire White could take a look at and then see if this kid doing the punch is this bad, these things being done by ICE, now that's really, really bad. It's a resource called Wikipedia, which is the most legitimate resource, as we know. A while back, I just wanted to have a look into what ICE was really up to, and I found the Wikipedia page was actually amazing because it provides a massive list of the atrocities that ICE has committed, and it's a lot. You can scroll through and you can see all of the shocking things that they've done to people. It's kind of a tip of the iceberg situation. Like, there's so much worse things that are being done by ICE than anyone even realizes some of the stories are actually blood-curdling in their level of inhumanity, like straight up Nazi Germany vibes. There's this page, Deaths, Detentions, and Deportations of American Citizens in the Second Trump Administration. And as you go down, it says here, the US government is not tracking the number of detained or missing persons, but there's been at least 170 citizen detentions. As you go down, it says between 2015 and 2020, ICE arrested 674 potential US citizens and detained 121. You go down further, ICE named 2,840 US citizens as eligible for deportation between 2002 and 2017, but this is not where it gets really bad. You go down and it says deaths. You've got your Rene Good. We all know about that one at this point. Ruben Ray Martinez. Martinez did not respond to commands to stop, and then he was shot through the driver's side window. I'm sure they'd think that's all good. Keith Porter. Porter had a gun and he was shot by an ICE agent outside the ICE agent's apartment. Don't really know if that one is justified or not. It's confusing. Alex Pretty. Keep going down. Deportations. This is where it gets really rough. 2-year-old child. A 2-year-old US citizen was deported to Honduras with her mother, Jenny Caroline Lopez Villela, on April 25th, 2025. They were held by ICE at times in the hotel in Alexandria at times for up to 5 hours in a van at the airport. They were deported, and the father was told that they'd been sent to Washington, D.C. and would call him from there, but he didn't know that his family had been deported. They've been fighting against it, but to no avail. 4-year-old cancer patient and 7-year-old sibling. They're like deporting kids who have cancer. Talk about
objectively evil.
The mother attended all of her appointments. She met the requirements. ICE said they wanted to meet with her to photocopy the children's passports. Then the 3 of them were separated from their lawyer and detained. The children's mother was not permitted to speak with an attorney or family members prior to their deportation, despite trying to do so. So the mother was trying to follow the system that was set up, and they didn't care. They just kidnapped her and her children, deported them, and then they didn't let the 4-year-old have access to his cancer medication. Doesn't this sound cartoonishly evil? The 4-year-old had his cancer medication with him, but was not permitted to access it in detention. How is that not
objectively evil?
Like Brad says, 10-year-old child with brain cancer and 4 siblings. A 10-year-old girl with brain cancer who is an American citizen was deported with her parents and 4 siblings to Mexico after being stopped at an immigration checkpoint while on the way to an emergency medical appointment on February 4, 2025. The eldest child, age 15, also has a heart condition called long QT syndrome. 4 of the 5 children were born in the US. And they're like, we don't care if you've got brain cancer. We don't care if you're a US citizen. We don't care about following any kind of legal situation here. We're just deporting you. That's it. Miguel Silvestre. I don't know if I'm saying that right. In 1999, he was deported twice, despite being a citizen. ICE records incorrectly identified him as a Mexican citizen. Chantilla Sovranarath. He moved to the US where he was granted legal permanent residence before his first birthday. Throughout his life, they kept issuing removal orders for him, and then eventually, on October 23rd, Chief District Judge Shelley Dick issued a temporary restraining order that Sovranarath was not to be deported or removed from the jurisdiction of her district for 14 days while he presented his substantial claim of US citizenship. Regardless of the court's order, ICE deported Sovranarath to Laos on October 24. So even though he's following the system, a judge is saying he's got a chance to prove his citizenship, they deport him anyways. Like, we don't care, you're brown, we're going to destroy your life. It's disgusting. This is the stuff that Blaire White won't talk about. This is the stuff the right won't talk about. This is not justice. It's inhumane. It is a form of violence. Genesis Esther Gutierrez Castellanos. 5-year-old US citizen Genesis Esther Gutierrez Castellanos of Austin, Texas was deported to Honduras alongside her mother on January 11, 2026. ICE agents were acting on a deportation order issued in 2019, a year before Gutierrez Castellanos was born in 2020. So they allowed her to get to 5 years old and then we're like, all right, let's get rid of her. Humane? Like, I mean, come on. If you open up the page, Immigration Detentions of US Citizens in the Second Trump Administration, then there's just a tremendous list of people being detained, including elected officials. It just goes on and on and on. Many of these people have medical conditions. They're denied access to healthcare. They're denied access to lawyers. They are lied to by ICE. There's details to the individual cases, so you may be able to find some which seem more justified than others, but I would say in basically every single case, the protocol is detain and deny justice. There's also a section of unidentified citizens, people that they don't even know who they are. A disabled teen, 38 Los Angeles citizens, Camarillo citizens, 4 of them Illinois citizens. It just goes on and on and on and on. Like, it's a tremendous list. And I just think Blaire White should have a good read of this before she decides the thing which matters the most is that kid doing that punch. Ultimately, the kid punching the other kid. it's not good. But this is not the sickness of the society and of the system. This is just a symptom, an outcropping of the injustice which is being done, which is not being talked about, which is not being focused upon, in favor of the hand-wringing, the virtue signaling, and the Karenisation of the conversation. When it comes to conservatives, the number one thing that they care about is whether they feel that something could impact or affect them, if it affects people who are not like themselves, or who they feel are not like themselves, or that they disagree with strongly. It's deflect, downplay, bully, cajole, all those kinds of good words. Anyways, that's just something I wanted to talk about. See ya.
That's about it. See ya.